Hello again. What I want to share about today is something that happened yesterday, and it was one of those moments where life cracks you open. And it cracks you open just enough to free you a little bit more. And it's obviously quite a personal story, but I feel it might help someone else who's also afraid to fully be themselves and embrace their true authenticity. So I've always been someone who felt a little different from childhood all throughout my life. I'm in my 50s now. So from being a small child, I had a deep sense that there was something wrong with the world. It seemed upside down. It didn't seem right that there would be unpleasant things in the world. I remember really not liking school and finding that a really quite terrifying environment to be in, all throughout school actually, from being little to being a teenager. And then the other things that didn't make sense were church and the religious structures and the teachings of the church, that authority, fear-based energy of all of those places. And none of it really ever truly aligned in my body or my heart. I could feel that there were systems that were built on controlling and were kind of squashing people. I can only describe it as a kind of squashing energy. But I always knew that underneath that, there was always something so much more loving, so much more freeing, and so much more true. And I'm also somebody who's also always seen the best of people. So seen beyond all of their layering and their masking and their trauma to what's actually really underneath, which has caused me some problems in the past. So I know that if you're listening to this, you're probably someone who's quite similar. We go through our lives wondering, what are we going to do to get on here? So most of us try to fit in, try to conform. And it's a bit like forcing a square peg into a round hole. I was just naturally interested in a very young age from in everything kind of spirituality wise, in how the mind works, in consciousness and esoteric teachings. I was just drawn to those things. And later in life I became an art teacher, kind of by default almost, but creativity for me felt like freedom. And I think behind becoming a teacher in that, it was kind of being able to teach young people this kind of creativity, this freedom through creativity, but within this rigid system. And, for a while that worked really well until it became too constricting and rigid for me. And, a few years ago, I managed to leave the profession. Whilst teaching, I did lots of training in lots of other things and did my holistic therapy side of things as well as teaching. So I did the two things together. So hypnotherapy, NLP, energy healing, quantum healing, EFT. Just really enjoyed studying these different modalities and reading everything that I could about how the body can heal itself and how the mind affects healing and all of those different things. Knowing that everything is energy, also knowing that an energy cannot be created or destroyed. And I've always known that my mission, even though I didn't exactly know what it was or what it looked like, was really to relieve suffering. And it's part of why I was here. So I've always known that, but didn't really know exactly in what sense. But in the beginning of the holistic therapy journey, I was still teaching in mainstream school, and I was very discerning with who I shared the things that I was delving into with, because there was likely to be and was that kind of ridiculing and laughing at and she's a bit woo-woo, or a fear of being rejected, or afraid of being strange, or seen as not a credible person, or somebody who might not be good at my job. So I only shared what I was doing and my deeper beliefs with people that I felt safe with and people that were close to me. And that really wasn't many. I also think that at the beginning of that journey, the kind of hypnotherapy and NLP kind of seemed more professional in a conventional sense. So the other things I didn't kind of include in what I was doing. And slowly over time, I started to move into returning to who I really was. And this really kicked off big time after leaving mainstream work. Back to my authentic self, being free with the things that I do, knowing that the right clients, find me and we have such amazing experiences and, just such wonderful healing exchanges and meeting exactly the right people that are also like-minded. And I actually fully thought until yesterday that I'd completely made peace with that old part of me that was a bit shy and a bit scared of showing who I really was. And although I'm quite used to YouTube and I quite like the energy of this platform, I am not really somebody who's on social media. But doing workshops and different things, it's kind of how people find out about things. So I've been kind of pushed to put some things and post some things on social media. So I was doing that yesterday and I was quite pleased with myself, with my technical skills, and I'd done these nice little stories for Instagram and managed to connect links in there and do all sorts of things. So I was feeling really good and I posted a couple fine, and then there was one that I was posting about a soul and drum alchemy workshop that I'm doing in collaboration with somebody else who is, we do shamanic drumming and all those different things in that. And by accident, whilst posting this, I shared it to people who I know from looking at who they are. I deliberately went through and picked who I wanted to send it to, thought I'd picked those people, but what I'd actually done is pick all of the other people that I thought, no, that it's not really for them. It's probably really not their thing, knowing that they're really not people that would be aligned with that work, people from my past and people who have maybe scoffed at things that I was kind of doing before. So suddenly I realised I'd sent it to those people. And when I realised it, it was like, whoa, this wave of shame and oh my God, I just want to hide. What are they going to think? Oh God, I've made a mistake. Oh, how stupid. Literally spiraling into this kind of, no. And then obviously you can't delete it. It was just crazy, the surge of panic that I felt. And then immediately after posting it, I had people messaging me and saying, did you send me a video? Did you mean to send me this? And I just found myself apologising. I'm so sorry. Yes, I sent it by accident. And I was doing this for a while. And then I'm just feeling really like I just wanted to put my head under the duvet and not come out again. And then something really profound happened. I just suddenly realised that was not a mistake at all. It was an old fragment of a wound that I thought had been healed, being revealed again. That childhood wound of I don't fit in and there's something, I must be wrong, be quiet, don't show yourself and just try to blend in, try to fit in, don't stand out, don't cause a ripple, all of those things. So it was a core survival pattern that once kept me safe, but totally no longer serves me, and something that I thought I really had shifted through. So what I really saw with this exercise was that last remnant of fear of criticism, which is one of the major few fears that we have as a spiritual being having a human experience. And it came into my conscious awareness so I could really fully see it and see it for how ridiculous it was. And that I could finally go, do you know what? Let it go now. Let's release it. So really allowing it, acknowledging it and just letting it be fully felt through and seen. It was, in the end, after the craziness that ensued when I'd done it, I just saw it as a gift. It's a doorway. And the other side of that doorway was a deeper decision. and it's to fully own who I am in every space, not just with the people who I feel safe with, not just on the platforms I feel safe with, not just in the environments and the places, just to just totally be who I am, but in all areas of life. So no kind of adjusting or, masking to pretend to be something else. So no more shrinking or apologising, no more hiding the sacred parts of myself, because these parts of myself are really powerful and they're really helpful to others, and I'm celebrating that. So I really wanted to share this message to kind of speak to maybe someone who might be listening to this, and just reassure you that you are not alone. And it's so nice that we're all kind of finding each other now. And there's always going to be people that resonate with us, and there's always going to be people that don't resonate with us and who we are. And some will feel inspired in our energy, and some will feel uncomfortable. Some will feel threatened. That's something I experienced so much, and I recognise that is because it's shining a light on unhealed stuff within them. Not to kind of judge anybody, but I've noticed that that's actually what's at play here when someone feels uncomfortable in our presence. And some simply won't understand why you're interested in that, and that's completely okay. Everybody is exactly where they need to be. But it's not my job to shrink myself just because I'm like this. I'm just going to be me, and I'm just going to post things completely freely if I feel like doing that. And whoever looks at it can deal with that. So it really does take courage to be visible, especially after a lifetime of trying to shrink and fit in, especially if you're sensitive as well, because it's quite a challenging combination of things to have. And it really does take bravery to be unconventional, but that's how we change the earth. And it takes, fully stepping into our heart to be the weird, quirky, mystical, creative, sensitive, soulful person that you are, without apology. And we do this by not fitting in, but by remembering totally who we are. So if you're somebody who's ever felt different, if you've ever hidden parts of yourself with different groups of people that you interact with, if you've ever felt shame for your interests, your innate spiritual nature, your creativity, or your truth, I just want this to be your permission slip, because it's time to be fully who you are now. To fully embrace the strange, the sacred, the silly, the soulful, and the unconventional. Because as we do this one by one and we step into our authenticity, it gives others permission to do the same. And that to me is real healing. So thank you so much for walking this path with me. Thank you so much for your wonderful supportive comments. And I said to myself when I started to do these videos that as long as I help one person, that's enough. And I'm really inspired to carry on to doing them. And I'm just loving the fact that there is great feedback. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, and have the most beautiful day being the brave, authentic you. See you in the next one.